Guys, over the years, Australian motor racing has reached out to the world for expertise, and there have been some spectacular successes. Think Carol Smith with Alan Moffat in team management, and of course their driver, Jackie Hicks, but they're two specific tasks. One international who was the real deal across the board, team manager, engineer, and gun driver, all in one. Welcome, Win Percy. Win, welcome to Ian Maudsley's little party. And as 3 times British saloon car champion, highly credentialed driver for hire, how did Tom Walkinshaw persuade you to give that up to come to Australia and form HRT?
Well, you knew Tom. He wasn't the easiest person in the world to get on with, but for some reason we did. I never really demanded anything. For some reason, the first time we ever met was when I was racing Toyota in '75. When he came across after the race, I won my class. This was with the Celica. And he said, "This is your first touring car race?" And I said, "Yes, it was." He said, "Well," he said, "you're very good." And he said, "One day I'll have my own racing team." He said, "And I'll expect you to drive for me." And he shook hands and walked away. And I said, "Who was that?" They said, "The guy you were racing against, Tom Walkinshaw." And then in 1980, he got me to drive for Mazda. And in fairness, the 2 years of Mazda and the 1 year of Toyota's Corolla, I mean, I did have the best car in that class. And all I had to do was look after it and drive it properly. But then we went on, of course, to the European racing, and I got involved with Australia after 85 Bathurst. And I absolutely loved both Bathurst and Australia. So at the end of '89, he said, "When I would like you to do something pretty big for me." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Go out to Australia." He said, "And take the team, run the team for me." I've got the job, I've got the company to run the cars, but he said, "I haven't got anybody to run it." He said, "Larry and I, Larry Perkins, will never get on." So he said, "I would ask you to go out." He said, "What do you think?"
What did you find when you got here, Win? Both in motor racing and in the industry, what state were we in?
Well, I think motor racing in Australia has always been strong. The Holden, the Ford ongoing challenge was wonderful to watch from here, from Europe, you know. And of course, in this sense, we're on the Skyline as well, Skyline, yeah. And that was the biggest challenge. But when I got there, it was a bit of a shock. Basically, Tom assured me there was a car ready for me. There was a workshop in Ferntree Gully full of items, engines, gearboxes, and all that. What he hadn't allowed for that in '89, Larry had the use of all this stuff. The car had been sold. When I got there, there was a body shell in the corner of the workshop and nothing else. And the body shell was the one that the axle had fallen out of at Bathurst in '88. So I got there January the 7th, when Australia is virtually closed as far as finding open workshops or help or anything. I then got on the phone to Rob Benson, who'd worked with us in TWR days in England. He was in America with NASCAR, convinced him to come and join me as my engine man. Got in touch with Wally Story up in Sydney, who I'd met quite a few times through Neil Crompton, and convinced Wally to join me as workshop manager. Phoned around and got one or two other lads from the past that I knew I could rely on. And with 5 guys, we built a car, and we were at the first race at Malabar, wasn't it? First one? Yeah. For the championship. And we were quickest Holden that day, and that encouraged us enormously. I'd only been there literally a couple of weeks, I suppose, from starting. And I had a fax come through. In those days, it was all faxes from Tom to say that my budget had been cut by 40%. So the figure that he'd assured me I got before I left England was cut by 40%. I didn't have the car that was there that was promised me. We had to start from scratch. But it was amazing how people rallied around. I didn't have the problem being a Pom that had come and taken over from very many people at all, a handful. I was accepted and I got on with it and I loved it.
You set yourself a fairly hard task, though. You were working for Tom, not an easy man. And your driver, the one that you really seemed to get along with, was none other than Alan Grice. I mean, talk about setting yourself the hardest task in the world. What were those two guys like?
Well, they didn't like each other at all, pretty obvious. Alan had been to the European Championship in '86 when Brockley came over as well with a Holden. And they'd had words. They obviously didn't get on very well. Alan was always very difficult. But after I'd done Bathurst, I raced at Bathurst in '85 with the Jaguar. Alan invited me in '87 to do Bathurst, Sandown and Bathurst with him. He respected me enough for that. And '88. And '88, he helped me get the drive with Nissan through Howard Marsden. And that was the European Championship. And Le Mans with the Group C cars and everything, which I loved. I loved Group C. Tom would never let me do it. He said, "You're my touring car driver. You're not going to do Group C. That's it." And I had to persuade him. And eventually I did do Le Mans a couple of years with the Silk Cut cars. But for some reason, he just wanted to keep me in touring cars. He was very good at, I guess the word is manipulating drivers to do as he wanted. And lots of drivers found that out over the years. Anyway, part of the deal that when I came to Australia was that I could choose my co-driver, my partner, for the long distance races. So he phoned me one day before Sandown and said, "Tim Harvey's coming over to drive the long distance races with you." I said, "There's no point, Tom. He won't be driving. I've hired Alan Grice." "No, you're not." I said, "No, I've actually hired Alan Grice. Alan's going to drive with me. I want an Australian in the car with me. Good or bad, I think it's the right thing to do." "No, you're not." I said, "Tom, I've hired him." "On your bloody head be it," and he banged the phone down. That was the end of that conversation. So
yeah, go ahead.
That evening after Bathurst, after we won, when I phoned him, he went very, very quiet. And he said, "I'll talk to you in the morning."
Let's talk about that win in 1990, though. You're both team manager and driver, let's say lead driver, no matter what Alan was. And yet you made the decision to let Grice drive the last stint. Now, was that the team manager talking or was that the driver talking? Which one?
No, totally team manager. To be honest, at Sandown, I had hurt my shoulder when I went off when the brakes went up into the gravel trap. I did the stupid thing of holding on to the gear lever, trying to reduce speed, which you shouldn't do. You should let go of everything. And I jarred the shoulder. So I wasn't the fittest for that race. I knew that. I'd seen so many incidents at Bathurst that made me cautious at the start. I wanted to do the start. I put an awful lot of work into it. I'd been up through the night on a couple of nights, stacking the tyre truck as I wanted all the tyres. So I didn't leave it to the boys to do that. So I was tired when I got there, but I was still pretty fit in those days and pretty happy with it. So I wanted to do the start. What I didn't want to do was go and stuff a half shaft or something off the line because of the weight of fuel, which I wasn't used to standing starts. Most of my starts were rolling starts. So I was cautious off the line, didn't have a particularly good start, didn't bother me. The overriding point of that car in 1990 was to build, with my little team, who were absolutely fantastic, loyal, hardworking people, was to build a bulletproof car that you could drive flat out 1,000 k. But the overriding point was that it had to be foolproof, scrutineer proof. The worst thing in the world would have been to have got a reasonable position. I'd never dreamt, perhaps, that we'd win it, with a good position, and then be accused of fudging the works, the factory car. So the point was, it was bulletproof. We worked very hard on getting the brakes right, which Alan was testifying during the race how good they were. And we both drove the car flat out. The last stint, I felt that Alan was the stronger of the two. I gave him the choice. I didn't want to do it. But as the manager, all of a sudden, I realised that we could win this race. And it was a dream come true. You know, it was almost like impossible at the beginning of the year that we could do that the first year.